In this video, we're going to talk about 3 tips for disciplining your teenager. Now, this is the hard part of parenting teens. We don't like the thought of having to rock the boat, right? We want to be on good terms with our teenager. It's such an up and down time in your teenager's life, and you don't want to do anything that creates upheaval. But here's the truth. The goal of parenting your teenager is not about wanting to be their friend. Even though wanting to be liked by your teenager and wanting to connect with them more and more like an adult is great, but at the end of the day, you're still a parent. You're not their friend. And discipline is a necessary ingredient for you to actually be able to lead and guide and direct your teenager in the direction that you want them to go. Here's the first tip. Effective discipline is corrective. Here's what that means. The point of discipline isn't just to be mean for the sake of being mean to your teenager or being annoyed and frustrated with their disrespect that you just lash out in a moment of anger. Discipline is a tool that you use to train your teenager to understand the difference between right and wrong, good choices and bad choices. So here's what that means. If they choose to disobey, if they go against the rules in your home, then there has to be a negative consequence to that. And it has to be a negative consequence in terms that it has an impact on them in a negative sense. So they'll think to themselves, you know what? Okay, that choice I just made did not yield the result I really was looking for, and I don't like that negative attention, and I didn't like the consequence that my parents had to give me. I'm going to think about that before I do that kind of thing again the next time. Again, the point of effective discipline is it's corrective. It's teaching and training your teenager so they don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. Truthfully, at the end of the day, discipline really is for their protection. And I think it's important for us as parents to remember that. Discipline is corrective because we want to teach our kids to know the difference between those right and wrong choices because we want to protect them, not because we just want to punish them, not because we want to be mean to them, because we want to help direct them on the right course and to stay away from those wrong things that are out there. Look what it says in the book of Proverbs. Discipline your children while there is hope. Otherwise, you will ruin their lives. So parents, let's remember that first tip of effective discipline is all about it being corrective, that's part of our job as parents is to discipline so that we don't ruin our kids, so we don't train up our teenager to think they can do whatever they want without any consequence, because that's not how the real world works. There will be consequences for wrong choices. So let's train them up now and help them understand that our discipline is to correct and to teach them. The second tip for effective discipline of your teenager is all about creating clear expectations and boundaries. Here's what we need to remember. Even though our teenagers are starting to spread their wings and want to become more independent, they still need to be trained and guided. They need to be held within certain boundaries that, again, are for their protection. So we don't just release them to figure it out for themselves, that we're training them up as they go and as they get older, and we add more and more independence as they earn it and as they learn how to make right choices. So it's really important as parents then that you create very clear rules in your home. Those boundaries, whatever they're going to be, with friends, with social media, with movies that they watch, with homework and what they're doing in school and activities, and if they work outside of school, that you need to have very clear rules, expectations, very clear boundaries that both you and your teenager understand these are the rules of our home and this is what's expected. And here's the good news. When you create those clear boundaries and you're both on the same page, that allows for you to give then freedom to your teenager within those bounds, that they're safe to operate in this particular way. Think of it like a fence around your home, that you can send your kids out in the backyard if it's fenced and feel like they're not going to get themselves in too much trouble because you've put around boundaries that keep them within your property line and you know the tools and the things that you have out there that they need to be protected from. And here's the third tip. Effective discipline means that you're consistent with the consequences. Now, this is the harder part of discipline, right? We have to be ready to give a consequence every time a boundary is broken or a rule is broken. We have to be able to be ready with that consequence every single time. Because again, like we said, discipline is about correction, right? We're trying to teach and to train our teenagers what's right and what's wrong. And we're trying to set them on a course towards the direction we want them to go. So if we're not consistent then in our discipline, then what we're really communicating to our teenager is that behavior's okay sometimes, but not other times. So we're just creating confusion, and then it's not really corrective. So it's very important that as parents that you make that decision, that once you know what your clear boundaries and expectations are, that you also know what's going to be the consequence when these things are broken, and to communicate those clearly with your teenager. And again, every time a rule is broken, every time that boundary is pushed and your teenager is not honoring what you have set up, then they need to have a consequence for that. Because the only way they're going to learn to maybe not make that decision again is that a negative consequence, a punishment has come into the picture that makes them think before they make that decision again the next time. So make sure that you're consistent in your discipline.